So Galicia, you can go ahead. So
For sure. Okay, let me just full screen this. Okay, yeah. Can you hear me good?
yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll just get started. We are recording this, so if there's anything that you miss, feel free to come back. But yeah, hello everyone. My name is Galicia Gordon, and today I'll be doing a workshop on networking, specifically networking as a student, and I'll be sharing like my own personal experiences, and then also getting into some ways that you can network and really just get into the benefits of networking in itself. So first, I'll start with a little outline. To get into this presentation, I will be speaking about myself a little bit. I'll look into Leading Learners, which is a startup that I did found, some benefits of networking as a student, some things to include on social, such as LinkedIn, some tips to find your why, strengths and weaknesses when I was starting off, tips to find the right people, and resources to establish your project or even network your own project. So yeah, that's the presentation outline. So to start off, first I'll talk a little bit about me. So as a professional title, I am the founder of Leading Learners, and essentially we are considered a centralized approach at student resources. So taking together everything a student could need during their academic years onto a singular place. And as some statistical numbers, we've been able to reach over 100,000 students globally through our platform. And we've also promoted over $3 million in scholarships in the first year of operations. And then at the bottom, I have a bunch of judging and mentoring experiences that I'm not going to get quite into, but if you have any questions about any of the ones that you see on the screen, or if there's any like questions you have about judging and mentoring at hackathons or business competitions specifically, or generally, feel free to let me know. And I will answer any questions at the end, but if you have anything that's on your mind immediately, feel free to put it in the chat and then I'll come back to it at the end. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. So next, getting into Leading Learners. So like I mentioned, we take a centralized approach at student resources. So tying together everything a student could need onto a singular platform. And we do this by creating like 3 categories of these resources that we do have for students. So we have resources, materials, and tools. So resources is anything we consider to be sort of like the basic resources you'll use for like, math, biology, chemistry, just basic resources like videos or websites. And then materials we consider to be more so tangible items that students can use. Some immediate examples that come to mind are classroom posters or planning sheets here like we have, or so many others that honestly are there. And then the last one from materials is tools. So for tools, we consider that to be anything that is non-stationary. So for example, study timers like we have here, or 1 to 2 minute video toolkits or guides to help support students. So yeah, that is us in a nutshell. So next I want to get into the benefits of networking itself. So first I'll talk about benefits of networking as a student specifically, and then tying that together with my own personal experiences. So some benefits of networking as a student, there are so many, but I just condensed 4 here. So the first one for sure is getting to know your interviewer's background. So for me, when I'm going into interviews, I like to at least have some sort of confidence about the person I'm going to be meeting and, who they are and what kind of background experiences they maybe had in the past. And so that helps a lot when you're going into an interview, just being able to see who the person who is interviewing is and what they have done to get into the position that they are in. And then second, getting a sense of previous hires or what companies are looking for. So if you have like a certain set role that you want or a certain company that you want to work for, it's really nice that on networking platforms like LinkedIn or even others like Lunch Club, you're able to see those companies and then the people who have worked there and what they have done to get to those paths. And then the third one is typical career or academic paths in your personal vocations or interests. So for me, for the longest time of my life, I was very dedicated to going towards law, and I didn't realize until like a little bit later that I wanted to work in business and education or technology. And when I was really dedicated towards a certain subject, I had my mindset to, I was able to see not only the people that were getting into those fields, but also what, they did aside from their academic paths, and what kind of interests they had or different programs they partook in from different blog posts or even their experiences on their LinkedIn. And then lastly, discover opportunities exclusive to you. So this is something that not many people take into account, I'm going to be honest, because when I initially heard about LinkedIn, the only reason I actually got on, even hearing about all the great benefits, was that one of my friends actually got an internship, and they were actually reached out to from someone who worked at a company to take them on. And that's when I said, okay, maybe I should join. Like, you never know what you can honestly do or get from being on the platform. And so that's when I had actually gotten onto the platform myself. And I always say this, but you never know when it can be you. So next, getting into my experiences, the first one here, when we were doing executive applications, we were receiving, many applications, many people who were coming in, and we were having some great applicants, but we were not having that great applicants within the financial field that we were recruiting for. And so we realized, like, there's not that many great people who are applying within the finance field. Let's go reach out to people on LinkedIn who work within finance or who are interested in finance to come apply and work for us. So I actually sent out 3 individual messages to people on LinkedIn just by using the words that they have on the bio keyword search. So I was using like interest, passion, experience, and then I put the word finance next to all those words. And then I was going through people who had some experiences within those fields, and I had actually taken one on. So again, you never know when that can be you. And then my second point here is keyword searches are often used by employers or stakeholders. So many people will, do these keyword searches to find people, like I just mentioned, within certain fields, or not even just employers, but students who may look up to you because you work in a certain field and they would just like to learn more about you and why, you got into the certain role that you're in. And then lastly, this is kind of funny, but it's actually very common for people to say, I saw this on your LinkedIn, or I took a look at your LinkedIn and I saw that you did XYZ. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? So for one of my recent interviews that I was just doing like an extra internship, I just wanted some more experience. I had been asked that. They had actually went to my LinkedIn, and then the HR representative had said, hey, I saw that you like tutoring students on your LinkedIn. Could you tell me a little bit more, some experiences or encounters you've had with students? And that was a genuine question that was asked like at the very start of the interview. And that is something that I always do ask people when we're taking them on, is kind of getting to know their specific experiences, whether that's on LinkedIn or their resume. But those are some benefits of networking, and then also my personal experiences. So next, I want to get into things to include on socials. So this is something that people are often asking me, which is like, what can I do to just include, my experiences on LinkedIn, or just get a page started up? So in social profiles, you can start off by saying and naming your interests. So I'm a student interested in XYZ, or I have experiences in these 3 fields, 3 to 5 fields. And then second, you can get into like a general overview of your experiences. So speaking about, aside from your interests, what have you had some deep experience in? Maybe not so deep experience, but some experience that you can actually speak about, that people, if they were wanting to reach out to you, could ask you about. And then getting into why you're on this platform. So like I mentioned, some popular networking platforms are LinkedIn and Lunch Club, but you can explain why you're on that platform. So many first-year students who get into university say, I'm looking to connect with incoming first-year students, or I'm looking to work at startups, or as any other example, expand digital marketing experiences, or expand different experiences within this technical field. And then I typically recommend, 3 to 4 or 5 larger experiences. So in your LinkedIn, for example, you can have different experience boxes and get into descriptions. So if you would like, you can, describe them in greater detail for 3 to 5, maybe larger experiences. And then the rest that are not so important, just leaving them with their title and what you maybe did just generally. And yeah, this is just some things that you can include on social if you wanted to. Feel free to take a photo of this, or note anything down. But as always, this is being recorded, so you can come back to this at any time. Next, I want to get into finding your why. So this is something that I am also asked quite often, which is, how do you find your why, or how do you find that passion or something that you want to work towards? So for me, I'll start off with why I started. So I started, this idea of creating like an edtech platform because I grew up from my diverse background and I had struggled to adapt to my various circumstances. So my parents were spending hundreds upon hundreds of dollars for me to attend like different tutoring services and overall be able to learn. And it was like a very challenging process nonetheless. And then that tied together with the fact that when I was in high school, I had zero idea of what I wanted to do after high school. I was just kind of following the path of everyone else who was mainly many of my friends were in like sciences or going on to medical school, but I just didn't have that passion or interest. And that leads on to my last point that I just had experienced quite a lot of peer and some family pressures when making my career decision. So many of my friends, like I mentioned, were going to med school. My mom was also in medicine, so I had that influence. And I had said, I'm just going to start a platform where students could come and have everything they could possibly need to support them. And so that's why I launched us. And yeah, that's been why we had started. And now for why we keep going. Well, I have learned, that there are thousands of other students in the shoes that I was once in and, would like to get out of those shoes that I was once in, not really feeling too supported, not really sure what they would like to do after their high school or academic years. And second, I've also learned to honor my pace and I feel, much more happier knowing where I want to be in the future. And then lastly, feedback and student stories. So feedback, I put a little asterisk there because if you're launching anything, if you can give feedback, receive feedback pretty early on, it'll help you to really change and mold your product or service or personal branding that you are providing for people. Next, I think this is like 2 to 3 slides before the end, but strengths and weaknesses is something I want to address just because when I was networking and making business connections, I didn't know many people starting off. Like I just didn't know many business connections or many people. And there were some things that I was able to do in terms of strengths and weaknesses that allowed us to grow. So starting off with strengths, we had a really close-knit community and regular bonding sessions from the start within our team. We also, as a team, collectively focused and honed in on our target audience, which was students, and we received support from them from the very start. And we did this by doing student surveys around neighboring high schools and universities. And then third, we knew of things that we could and could not control. So for example, we knew that we could control, for example, how many students we reached their surveys by just doing more surveys. But we knew that we could not control or change how educators or parents would approach the platform despite the funding we were receiving. And then lastly, we had a strong foundation of values and a strong mission statement. So our mission statement is to support students through free and accessible resources in order to find their own individual paths, their own individual successes. And that is something that, relates to many people, which allows us to have that strength in times that are more difficult. And then getting on to weaknesses. So we have, seen that when we were starting off, it was mainly us being all students, like a student-led team. And we really just didn't have that much confidence speaking to government leaders or educators or parents twice or triple our age. And I feel like we didn't have that confidence for the second point, which was we didn't have a professional front and we weren't really able to establish our brand from the very beginning. So we didn't really have like meaning behind questions that people would ask, like, why do you guys stand out? What makes you unique? Things like that. We just didn't have clear answers to. And so we had to create one-pager guides that allowed us to explain ourselves easily to people who were asking these questions. And then lastly, a little bit embarrassing, but we didn't have a project management software for many, many months to come. So keeping information internally was a little bit hard because we didn't have anything set up like a Notion, Asana, Trello, nothing like that. And I would recommend that 100%. And now I want to get into finding the right people, quickly ending off before some resources. So this is a quote that I bring up a lot in many workshops, which is know where you want to go and make sure the right people know about it. So Meredith Mahoney had once said this quote, and it's something that stuck with me a lot because like I mentioned, I'm not sure if I actually mentioned this, but for many months, it was just myself and my COO who are running the platform and getting ourselves out there, but we didn't really have that great of a team to start off. And it was something that honestly held us back. And so some things that I recommend to find and network with the right people, there are 5 points I have here, but of course there are many, many more. So starting off with closer friends, which is a question I'm asked a lot, is that in business, I don't necessarily ask my closer friends for advice on an action I should take. Usually I'll just take the action and after ask them for input. And I do this because they've usually been with me side by side, seeing the entire process, and it really just helps in that sense. And then second, reaching out through other people. So if you have like a single communication representative that can help with all the external relations, that helps a lot. And then connecting with program participants. So you're already here. Hackathons are an amazing way to connect with people and meet and network with amazing people who are like-minded. And then my last 2 points here, family connection. So if you have a good family connection or a few, that is a great starting point. And then educators lessons. So if you're able to set up like a coffee chat with teachers or professors, it's something I would recommend because many of them are honestly willing to do that if you just take the time to ask. And then ending off with resources. So I'm going to end off with resources on the logistical side and then also some tools. So on the logistical side, I would recommend considering, team formation is also time for team bonding as well, understanding each other, why you're all here, your strengths and weaknesses as individuals, and, why you're doing the work that you're doing. Second, spend time researching your target audience more than the potential outcomes. So whether you're networking yourself or networking a project, just getting to know the people that you're serving much more. And then lastly, if you're not, put yourself in the consumer or customer persona shoes. So imagine your ideal person who has all the struggles that you're trying to solve and help them through it. And then on the tool side of things, so Patriot is this amazing accounting management software, but I also like them specifically for networking because they help with basic business resources. So if you want to learn the very basics of business, it helps a lot. And then Canva is this accessible design platform, and many people like them for their platform. But what I like about Canva specifically is that you can print out the designs that you make for really a relatively low cost. So anything like paper, cardstock, t-shirts, really for relatively low cost, just starting off. And then lastly, digital grants. So if you can do some good searches like free tools for students, free student technology in your city, or tech for good, these are some good search queries to just get the ball rolling and get some basic resources for you and your team. And that is everything I have for this workshop. So if you did have any questions, feel free to let me know via LinkedIn, but otherwise I'll leave I guess another 1 or 2 minutes just in case there's any questions.
Uh, Thank you very much, Galicia. That was a great session. I think we should wait, 3 minutes for to welcome any questions from the attendees. That's good.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Thank you. Okay, so far as asking about sharing my LinkedIn, I will do that actually right now. Let me exit out of this. Yeah, for sure. If you have any questions about anything that you just don't have on top of your mind, feel free to let me know via LinkedIn as well. And then if you're just getting started, feel free to connect with me as well. So this question says here, what would be an ideal introduction for someone? So I think that when you're starting off and you maybe don't have as many connections, maybe explain generally your intentions with the message, because with people who may not know you, they may not actually respond to those messages that are just asking questions without any context. So if for a first initial introduction, explaining yourself, like what your role is and why you would like to get in contact with them, and what your intentions are with connecting with them. And like I said, if you don't really know someone, definitely give some some meaning behind the intention why you're connecting and would like to meet with them. Oh, this is a fun question. So what are the steps of a startup? So yeah, well, when you're starting off, of course, there's that ideation period where you're just coming up with the idea. So coming up with an idea can be, just brainstormed many ideas all across the board. That's what we did starting off. And then after the ideation phase, I would recommend just getting, a basic model. So it can be something very small or that you don't, doesn't have to be, used by people, but just something that people can see generally what you're trying to produce. And then when you do have something that you can produce, then slowly start promoting it by either having it on social media networks, or there are many startup directories that allow you to just promote yourself just because you are a startup. So if you want to include, a description of what you guys are doing, where people can find you, that'll slowly build some good connections and visibility to that startup that you are creating. And then after, it's just I guess a continuous process of producing things for those people that you are supporting. This question says here, I'm just gonna wing it. Should we ask for a job when networking with someone? Should we ask for a job when networking for someone, or is there like a workaround for it? Yeah, I mean, again, that is a good question and good for you for asking it. I think that, again, it's not something that you should ask just off the bat when connecting with someone. I would say first make that connection. And I know, like, personally, that I would not really consider someone who I barely know, even if they have a lot of experiences. I would like to get to know them, even just if it's just a general, back and forth chat, or if you would like to, you can even take that extra leap to say, hey, would you like to set up a meeting sometime, and just talk. And then, yeah, after getting to know each other, I think that you could slowly maybe allude to that and then ask them, but not necessarily off the bat for sure. That's what I would say. Okay, this question says here, how do you make a good team? Yeah, I think I'll take one more question after this. I do need to go soon. But so this question here is, how do you make a good team? So yeah, when we were starting off, like I said, I don't think I mentioned, but my COO is actually my closest friend. And that's something that's not really recommended in business. But the only reason why I had continued and pursued this with her was because I had seen that first, like, strong bond. So that's something I would recommend when you're just starting off, having a strong bond with someone. And then second, seeing someone who is goal oriented. So if they have like something that they would like to accomplish, are they willing to take the work to get it done? I think those two things honestly tell a lot about a person, whether they should be on your team, and that does not even consider experiences. And then when you do have, I guess, more capability to take on an actual team, then you can slowly but surely start promoting yourselves either by Instagram or LinkedIn. I would say LinkedIn is much more pricier, but when we were starting off, the reason why we got much more applicants and people we could see was because we were paying sometimes for Instagram promotions, and they're not that expensive. They're really quite cheap. And yeah, but like I mentioned, those two things, having a bond and a good person who is goal oriented, are two very, very important things.
I think we should end this session now.
Mhm.
Thank you very much for joining, everyone for joining, and thank you, Galicia, for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much. If you have any
Thank you so
questions, feel
much,
free to,
Alicia. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Feel free to let me know via LinkedIn if you have any other questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.